Welcome to Civic Warriors, brought to you by Witham. On this podcast, we bring the conversation to you, sharing engaging stories that motivate and build consensus in the nonprofit community. This podcast is about the innovators, the leaders on the front line of adversity, guiding lights in the nonprofit industry affecting change. And through their stories, we can all join forces to become Civic Warriors.
Hey, Warriors. Welcome to today's episode of Civic Warriors, brought to you by Witham. I'm your host, Brad Caruso, leader of Witham's not-for-profit practice. Today's guest is an organization that works to address a disease and disorder that is not often talked about, but affects so many. David Manchin joins us today and is the executive director of the Epilepsy Association. The Epilepsy Association is dedicated to improving the quality of life of persons affected by epilepsy and seizure disorders and reducing the incidence of onset. We're going to learn a lot about epilepsy today and a lot more that we haven't learned, before. There's a lot of myths out there that we're going to debunk. And we're also going to learn a lot about the work that David and team are doing at the Epilepsy Association. So with that being said, David, welcome to the show.
Brad, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about epilepsy. It's a disease of isolation, and the more awareness and more conversation that's happening, the better for everybody involved. So thanks. I really appreciate it.
Love it. So I guess just to start, how did you get involved with the Epilepsy Association?
Yeah, great question. I never saw that this angle of my life attack would happen, but I was a high school teacher and a wrestling coach for many years. And throughout that time, through my 20 years in education and coaching, I crossed many different individuals. And one of my student athletes, as they grew older, I found out that they had epilepsy, and throughout their time in school, they would have seizures. He would have absent seizures. So I remember very specifically many times thinking this young man wasn't listening to me or was just spacing off or daydreaming, and I wasn't getting through to him. And then I reflect back and say, how many different students maybe do teachers not realize are having some kind of a seizure and don't realize it. I found out as he grew older and throughout his last couple of years of high school and then into college, they developed into grand mal seizures. Well, this individual was connected with the Epilepsy Association, and I learned a lot and had an opportunity. And I think through my abilities as a coach and growth and education, they asked if I would want to get involved with the Epilepsy Association. So through that relationship, I became involved with the Epilepsy Association. And then the Epilepsy Association has been around for over 60 years. And the gentleman who'd been running it for the last 28 years had decided that it was time to step away. And for whatever reason, they thought I was the good fit to take it forward.
Nice. How do you feel today?
Yeah, I tell you what, it's been super exciting. I've learned a lot. I enjoyed it. Working in the nonprofit sector is certainly a different challenge, but I certainly enjoy it. The impact that I get to see in individuals' lives and to know that there is an impact to help make these people's lives better has just been tremendous.
Yeah, and I think your certainly your personal connection. I always talk about this, but your personal connection certainly helps immensely. And being an educator, experiencing it firsthand for 20 years, and then now coming to lead the nonprofit, you have a perfect candidate to do that because you've seen it. You've been around it. You know what some of the issues are related to it. So I think that's phenomenal. Can you share a little bit more about the association itself? What work you do, some of the programs you have, how you help.
Oh, absolutely. So first and foremost here, we at the Epilepsy Association, we are an awareness and advocacy organization. So anytime anybody has a seizure disorder or a family member finds out a child or a family member has one, we're here to bring that community together so they can find the support they need, so they can find out they're not alone, so they can get the resources that are available. And with the age of the internet and with the world the way it is, there are resources everywhere. We can help you no matter where you're at in the world find that support and that help online and help you in your area. Our other mandate is here in Central Florida. We are one of 5 epilepsy service providers who actually provide medical services and treatment to those individuals who have seizure disorders who do not have insurance or are underinsured. So we actually take care of appointments with neurologists, epileptologists, give EEG, do a EEG testing, and take care of those things for those who do not have health care in any other way.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah. So certainly an integral component to anybody experiencing epilepsy. Certainly you're a valid and a strong resource for them to reach out to. Can you share some stats to help our audience understand a little bit who's affected, how they're affected, the volume and scale, I guess you can say?
Yeah. So currently there's more than, one big stat is in the United States, over 5 million people have experienced or dealt with epilepsy. And over 3 million are dealing with active epilepsy, meaning they are currently having seizures and dealing with getting those under control. So statistically, 1 in 26 people will have epilepsy at some point in their life. And when we say epilepsy, we're talking about recurring seizures, right? If you have two or more seizures, you are considered to be epileptic. So 1 in 26 people will develop epilepsy at some point in their life. 1 in 10 people will have a seizure event. So when you think about that, think about the number of people you know, and you're like, well, wait a minute. That gets to be quite a few individuals. But it is a disease of isolation where people don't share it. You don't necessarily see it. So it gets to be something that you don't think about. But I think most of us throughout life can maybe think of a time when maybe we've witnessed a seizure in some setting. But most of us, when we think of seizures, are thinking of what are called tonic-clonic seizures, which have been referred to as grand mal in the past, where someone is actually going to stiffen and then shake and fall down. And that, but there are so many there are over 40 types of seizures. The gentleman I talked about earlier, as a young man, had absence seizures, where it just looks like they're spacing off or staring out into space. Gazing, So it's a lot more prevalent than people think. However, 70% of people who do have seizures can find that treatment that will get that under control through either medication or through VNS or RNS.
Is it curable, or is this a lifelong, you have it, you're always going to have it?
Yeah, so curable is kind of I don't like to
wrong word.
Well, yeah, because technically it's not curable. Epilepsy can affect anybody at any time, and we don't know all the reasons why people have seizures, right? Again, you got a large percentage that they cannot pinpoint why someone has a seizure. So it's just, no, is it curable? That's probably the wrong word. Is it manageable? Absolutely. So you'll hear people, for the most part, epilepsy, the majority of epileptics that are having seizures are young or later in life. However, that does not mean anybody at any time can have them. But a lot of times you'll hear people talk about children growing out of seizures So it's very individualistic. Make sure you're, talking with your epileptologist or your neurologist, and you have that plan. But it is definitely manageable. You can live a normal life, a long life. You just have to be aware of what it means for you individually.
Yeah, and identification, I think, with anything is certainly important, and knowing that there's resources to help. So I know I had a friend and coworker here who, he told me he played sports, football in high school, and he experienced a couple seizures. And what I found out about that was not only does it affect you at that point in time, but also like if you indicate in the future that you have had seizures on applications in other places, there's limitations to what you can and can't do, or at least from what he told me, which is interesting. He ended up going to the National Guard, and I know they were very keen on asking him about that. David, from your perspective, what are some of the challenges epileptics face in general?
Yeah, you bring up a great point. There are challenges, and you bring up, can an epileptic do anything? Well, no, we all have limitations. If you're not the right height, you can't be a fighter pilot. If you don't have great eyesight, you maybe can't be a sharpshooter or something. But yeah, everyone has limitations, and epilepsy certainly is going to present some of those. So we like to say you can, live a normal life. However, you certainly aren't going to be driving a school bus, right? You're not going to be scuba diving underwater. You're not going to be doing things that put others in danger. However, there are most jobs, most people with epilepsy under control, they can do. What people become afraid of is letting people know in an interview process that, hey, I have this and need to make you aware of it. We always are counseling individuals who are like, they're going through an interview process and say, at what point do I let this know, or do I? Because if there's two candidates and one might provide, to an employer might think that one provides a liability issue, are they going to get hired? It's tough. So people get nervous about that. They get scared about that. So they don't identify to employers maybe. Epilepsy causes a large dropout rate in the workforce. It also causes a large dropout rate in school. So those kind of challenges. If you have a seizure in most states here in the United States, you lose your license, your ability to lawfully drive. So in Florida, you lose if you have a seizure, you're not supposed to drive for at least 6 months. In other states, it can go up to 2 years. Transportation becomes a huge challenge. How do I get to my job? How do I get to school? How do these things, manifest? And then how do people get around it? Are they, it's you get desperate. You're like, hey, I got to get to work. I don't have great public transportation. Maybe I'm driving and I shouldn't be. And that kind of puts a danger out there for everybody. So you got to be really conscious. We talk about building that support group, that support around you, if it's with family or community organizations like the Epilepsy Association. There is help out there, but you do have to find it.
Yeah, and I think this epilepsy itself and seizures in general, I think it's definitely, as you used the word before, manageable. But it sounds like it would be very difficult going through it or having seizures or not knowing when it's going to affect you to live your day to day. And it sounds like organizations like yourself are very well needed to provide assistance. And even in this conversation, there's a lot of things I never knew before. So, and I have a lot more questions. So we're going to get a lot more fun facts out there. But yeah, I'm learning, a lot about it. And I think it's interesting. And just to your point of how many people are affected. 1 in 26 is not a small number.
The stats have changed, but I think it's the fourth largest neurological disorder, period. So it's very prevalent. But what I can emphasize is building a support system, and part of our deal is to educate people, let people around you know so they can handle things appropriately. They're not afraid of the disease. The more awareness out there, the more people understand seizures are not as uncommon as you think. And when a seizure happens, it isn't most of the time life-threatening or dangerous at the moment. It is something that people live with, they manage, and they are productive and should not be shunned or steered away from to be involved. The more people around you that know your condition and can help you manage it, the safer you are, but at the same time, the more people out there will be willing to engage with you and you can become an advocate.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of us need to learn more of is, when you are aware of it, how can you help? And you should help because obviously, everyone's our brother and sister these days. And, there's person next to you, person to the left and the right of you. If you have the opportunity to help, I'm sure you want to. But I think a lot of people probably don't know how to. I'm a first responder outside of here. And I think the general public doesn't know how to respond to something that happens right in front of them because either they were never taught or the class they took in college they didn't listen to or, whatever might have caused it. But, from your perspective, how do I respond? Let's say I'm at work, person next to me at my desk has a seizure, drops to the ground, or, as you said, maybe sitting there and staring, but not responsive. What do you do? What's the protocol here?
Great question. The first and foremost, you need to be there for that person. So don't panic and don't run away. But real quick, if they're having a tonic-clonic seizure where they're stiffening and dropping, first off, you want to make sure they're safe. You want to clear the area. I know growing up, we were taught, put something in their mouth so if they bite down, they're not biting on their tongue or not swallowing their tongue. That is absolutely not what you want to do. You don't want to put anything in their mouth. They cannot swallow their tongue. They can't, and by you getting near their mouth, you put something in that they clench, you're going to lose a finger or something out there. You want to make sure their head's to the side. So if something is coming up, that they're not choking on it. So you want to make sure that you want to cushion their head if you can. The other thing is a human reaction is I want to hold you. I want to restrain you. I want to make sure do not you don't want to restrain them. You want to make sure the area is safe. They're safe. And then just be there when they come out. Most seizures are going to be, just a few seconds to 2 minutes or so. They are not long. The person is not in pain during the seizure. Certainly, if you're there, you protect them, they're probably not going to get injured. And then they're going to come out and they're going to they're going to go, oh my gosh, what happened? A lot of times they don't realize it happened. So you'll be there. You want to make sure you're calm, so they're calm. Then most likely, if it's not their first seizure, they'll understand. If it is their first seizure, they're going to be nervous. They're going to be scared. And I would tell you, if it's someone's first seizure, you're calling 911. That's absolutely. If it's someone who has epilepsy, has an identifier, a wristband, or something, a lot of times on their cell phone, there'll be emergency information for someone who has epilepsy. If you can identify or they let you know that they have seizures, they're going to direct you. But most of the time, a call to 911 isn't going to be necessary. Times when you would call 911 is if it happens, if someone witnessed someone having a seizure and they were in water. You need to call 911 because they could have inhaled some water there. If they're pregnant, if you cannot figure out if they have ever had a seizure before, call 911. It's better to be safe than sorry. But most of the time, they'll come out of the seizure. They'll have experience. They'll help you come around, and then go from there. Do not put anything in their mouth. Do not try to feed or give them food or water while they're having a seizure. Basically, that it's really not complicated. It's just more don't panic. Be there. Be a calming force, and then after that, most of the time, they'll be able to lead you into what to do. There is an exception. If they are having a seizure for more than 5 minutes, that's very dangerous. They're in a status epilepticus, and you need to call 911. They do need emergency help. That is a different condition if it progresses and is not stopping. Or if they're having multiple seizures, they need to go into the emergency room. That's where it starts to get dangerous.
And this may be a silly question, but, what does a seizure look like? Like, how do you recognize it as opposed to, I know we do a lot of trainings on, someone may go into cardiac arrest or someone, different things happen. What's the telltale sign that that's the case to, basically do nothing, right? I'm not going to go do CPR on someone having a seizure, right?
Right. So, when we're talking about seizures in this regard, we're talking about a tonic-clonic seizure.
Tonic-clonic, yep.
A tonic-clonic, or what's referred to as a grand mal seizure. And that's going to be someone who stiffens and then starts to viciously shake. The clenching of the muscles, everything is very jerky. It's going to be very surprising. It's going to be very stiff. There are people who have other types of seizures, or maybe a pseudo seizure, which is more of a psychological malady. And then that someone may also fall to the floor and do that. But you will notice now, a lot of children have what are called absence seizures, and that's the daydreaming, spacing, and they just are stopping. And it kind of looks like they're just losing time for a few seconds. They have no idea when they might be doing an activity, go into an absence seizure, and immediately come out. They'll have no idea they had that seizure. They'll just continue with what they were doing. So you might not notice all seizures, but I will tell you as a parent or as a teacher is that pay attention if someone is in the middle of an activity. Maybe they're coloring, maybe they're writing, and all of a sudden they just stop and look like they're spacing off, and then all of a sudden they come back and continue with what they're doing. They may have had a seizure in that. There are 40 different types of seizures out there. I'd hate to tell you that you would notice them all or what they are. Just be aware. There are drop seizures where someone will just lose all muscle tension, and that's why it's a drop seizure. So there's a lot of different ways it can manifest. But most of the time when we're talking about first aid, we're talking about a tonic-clonic seizure or an absence seizure.
Understood. Yeah, I appreciate that. When did they get involved with you as the Epilepsy Association, or when do you come into that equation to help?
Yeah, the minute someone finds out this is something in their life, a seizure disorder, either the person having it, a family member, we're here to support all areas of it. I have a concerned mom who called the other day. Her 28-year son had a seizure for the first time, and he doesn't want to reach out. He's not interested, but the mom wanted support. And organizations like what we can do is we bring that community together, or we can find people who have walked that journey or in that journey to connect you with. So it's, we have events throughout the year, and these events are happening all over the country, all over the world, in your area if you're not in Central Florida. But most of these organizations, such as us, are advocacy groups, and will connect you to support groups. Or I always think of the young parents who have all of a sudden, are finding out that their child is having seizures. And where is that support? That's a scary thing. And it's like, there are more of you out there that our job is to help connect you to that community, to that support, to those resources. The internet is also a fabulous place for information. It really is. We manage multiple websites. One is epilepsyu.com, which is going to have over 10,000 articles on from around the world about stories, about research, about treatments, and support. But you can find that throughout. Some fabulous organizations out there is the Epilepsy Foundation, the Epilepsy Alliance. You have Anita Kaufman Foundation. So if you are not in the Central Florida area, you have something in your area that where you can get that support and that help. On the other hand, if you can't find it, contact us. We will be glad to help you find that resource out there. Also, talking to your doctors, your neurologists, they can connect you and with that extra support in that. And I just think that's a crucial thing, because it's a scary, lonely disease that people often can drop out of society because they don't have the resources to be able to manage it.
Awesome. I was reading on your website that something about yoga being helpful. Is that true? That yoga is a helpful strategy?
Okay, so here, yes, it is true, but not yoga alone. I mean, we just launched a podcast, and one of the episodes we did is throughout the episodes is talking about how to manage it. And what we've come up with through doing these is take care of yourself. Self-care is the most important thing. And yoga through just in general is good for you. But yeah, as an epileptic, it's certainly going to be helpful. Anything you can do for self-care. Your diet is a huge component. 100 years ago, the ketogenic diet was developed for children with epilepsy. That's where it comes from.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Right. So your diet, certainly if you're, any, alcohol or drug use is not a good idea for anybody health-wise, but especially someone who's having seizure disorder. So if you take care of yourself, you're getting enough sleep, you're eating well, you're exercising, you're taking care of your mental health. And I believe yoga comes into that, right?
Mm-hmm. 100%.
So most of the time when we're talking about what should I do to manage my epilepsy, it's like, the same things you should do that everybody should do to manage their life, to have a better, more healthier life. So yeah, yoga is effective in helping you manage your epilepsy.
Love it. Yeah, and I've spoken to a lot of folks on the podcast and just a lot of the podcasts I listen to personally, and I think you can't reiterate it enough that personal health prevents a lot of things. We found it out through COVID. We found it out through, as you just mentioned, we found it out a lot of different diseases and disorders. One of the number one things they find in all of them is unhealthy food that you're eating, or not exercising daily for X number of minutes, or whatever it might be. So, I think that's also a key takeaway, not only related to epilepsy, but in general. Personal health actually is a key factor to a good lifestyle and being free of some of the challenges that come up. So,
and I would tell you, that the mental health piece is huge. Find someone to talk about it. Find someone where you can share, how you feel. find someone where, they can actually help you. That mental health piece is tremendous. This you can imagine, people with epilepsy can bring on the onset of depression, loneliness. I mean, it is just, it is life-changing, but it is not life-ending. I think that's important, but I think having people to talk about it and finding those resources. And again, that's a lot of what we do.
I love that. I can imagine anxiety disorders coming out, just being fearful of what's going to happen because you're not sure, or you're afraid to go, you might be afraid to go out because, or afraid of public view and things like that. So yeah, I could definitely see that angle, and it's helpful to know that, you certainly assist with that, and Epilepsy Association helps on the mental health side and can help with counseling and things like that. I think that's phenomenal.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're connected with a whole network of different nonprofits and organizations that offer services outside of that aren't directly the seizure disorder, but all of a sudden it's mental health, or maybe you need help finding that job. It's going to be vocational training. It's going to be if you're food insecure, it's finding getting that stability where you can get that life and get it managed and back online. One thing I do want to bring up, Brad, and make sure that we don't miss is that school children, right? So schools are one of for children is a partner. You need to, as a parent, you need to partner with the school, with the nurses, with the administration, and ultimately with the faculty, so they know what's going on. You need to have a seizure action plan in place. You need to make sure that your child knows they're safe at school. And the better job the school does with that action plan and with how they're prepared, the better that experience for that child is if they have an event in that. So again, don't be afraid to talk to those people who are engaged in your child's daily life. The other things, what I call majorly important, is don't miss your medication. Make sure you have that catch in there. One of the biggest reasons for an onset of a seizure is you missed your medication. You didn't get enough sleep. You got a lot of stress in your life and you're not managing it. Those things, but make sure that you are regularly in conversations with your healthcare professionals and following what they are saying and what they're recommending. We talk in generalities, but again, epilepsy is a very personal disease. Your treatment is very much personal.
How can the public donate to you or help you in your endeavors?
Thanks for asking, Brad. To donate to us, you would just go to www.epilepsyassociation.com and go to our website. And right up there in the right corner, it says Donate Now. We need your donations. Again, we give medical treatment to those who cannot afford it. We do pay for it, and we make sure they are getting treated. But that's where you'd go. You go to epilepsyassociation.com and hit the donate button. Other ways to support us, if you're in Central Florida, we have events throughout the year. We get together for walks, for picnics. We have a big event at Disney every year where we bring people from all over the Southeast and some across the country to get together and not only learn and get education, but to again, build that community. Other ways is to follow us on social media. We're at LinkedIn at the Epilepsy Association. We're on Twitter, or I guess it's X now, at Epilepsy Florida. You can follow us. We're on Facebook. So just getting involved, following us. But we can, if you want to donate, please go to our website, click that donate button, and we certainly will appreciate and can use that help.
It's great to hear. And just to reiterate, the podcast.
Yeah, so our podcast has been launched. We launched it back on October 1st. It's called Electric Avenue, Navigating Life with Epilepsy. And a lot of the stuff we talked about today, we do talk about in more depth on that podcast. But some of the one we just released is a conversation with a gentleman named Eric, and he happened to be a high-level athlete in college, and had to manage his epilepsy with that. But then he's also now he travels in sales across the country constantly, and I'm like, how do you manage a life that active with epilepsy, with traveling? And it's great to hear how he has built a support team, but what does he do? What's he got in place, and how is he able to function like that. He's blessed. He's got a great company that supports him, a great family that supports him. But you can imagine, what do you do if you have to get on an airplane a couple times a month and stay in a hotel? How are you going to make sure that you're safe? But just some great items, people to listen to, things to talk about. And then the most important thing about Electric Avenue is we are looking for the input of our listeners on how they navigate life with epilepsy. So I appreciate that. Thanks for the plug.
Yeah, no, love it. Yeah, always want to, support a fellow podcast, and certainly, I think it's highly relevant to our conversation today. And I think one of the ways that you gather information is just by hearing how others are affected and hearing the stories that they tell, and having the opportunity to talk with you and others at your organization. And it's another connection point. So I think it's awesome that you do it. I think podcasting is certainly, one of the most listened to mediums for information these days. And it's a great way to just have a conversation about a topic and share it to the world. And you can access it anytime. So yeah, I'm a huge advocate. But yeah, love that you're doing it. I love the name too. I could probably speculate as far as how you came up with the name, but yeah, I think it's awesome. I love hearing how people come up with the name and how they do that. Yeah, it's great.
We went through a whole process, and we haven't yet gotten rights to the song, but
one day.
The whole process, and so yeah, we'd love for y'all to jump in. We'll be releasing an episode every 2 weeks, and a lot of interviews, a lot of just life experiences where you can connect with someone who is probably experiencing some of the things that you do experience. I think our next podcast that we're getting ready to do is with a mother and a daughter who have navigated life and their perspectives. So it'll be a good one too. So join us. And since it is new, it only gets better.
That's right. It does get better over time, I promise. Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for being on the show today. I learned a lot. I'm sure our audience learned a lot, and I'm sure your audience will learn a lot more too, just having, more information out there. But thank you so much for sharing your time today and the great work you do at the Epilepsy Association.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. If your audience members have any questions, they can always email us at contact@epilepsyassociation.com. If you're in the Central Florida area, join us for an event, or if you're not, look for the events in your area. They are out there. There's organizations like us throughout the country.
Love it. Love it. And warriors out there, thank you for listening. Thank you for spending the time with us today. And obviously, a lot that you learned from this episode is related to education on epilepsy itself, that there's a great organization out there, the Epilepsy Association, that can help you. And David certainly shared a lot of resources on a lot of levels that can help. But, a lot of people are affected, significant amount of volume, and it's not easy to manage. So certainly appreciate you listening, appreciate the time, and, subscribe and meet us right back here for another episode of Witham Civic Warriors in the near future. Thanks, everybody.